In today's video, we're venturing into the fascinating world of Amish egg preservation, exploring how these communities manage to keep their eggs fresh for months without ever relying on an electric refrigerator. From centuries-old traditions to clever off-grid techniques, the Amish have crafted some truly ingenious ways to ensure a steady egg supply, even when their hens slow down during the coldest part of the year. We'll take a closer look at the 6 most popular methods they use, uncovering the principles behind each one and showing you just how easily they can be adapted for modern, off-grid, or sustainable living. Number 1. The salt embedding method. Many Amish families rely on salt for short-term preservation when egg surpluses arrive unexpectedly, particularly in early spring or late summer. In this technique, unwashed eggs are gently placed into a large wooden bucket or clay crock layered with coarse salt. The salt acts as a desiccant, wicking moisture away from any surface contaminants on the shell, making it hard for bacteria to thrive. Amish households acquire salt in bulk from general stores, often in 25 or 50-pound sacks, ensuring they have enough for preserving eggs as well as curing meats and pickling vegetables. Once the family decides to preserve a batch of eggs using this method, they ensure the shells have not been washed, because the natural coating, or bloom, remains a valuable line of defense against spoilage. When layering eggs and salt, each egg is carefully nestled so that it doesn't touch its neighbors, preventing cracks that could compromise the entire batch. Depending on the dryness and temperature of the storage space, salt-embedded eggs might stay usable for 4 to 6 weeks, though some Amish community members report shorter or slightly longer durations. It varies based on humidity and shell quality. One detail worth noting is that salt preservation risks over-drying the egg if left too long. The shell's many microscopic pores gradually allow the salt to draw moisture from within, causing the contents to shrink or even develop an overly dense yolk. Because of this, most Amish cooks prefer to use salt-preserved eggs in recipes that mask any textural shifts, such as breads, pancakes, or pastries. Additionally, once an egg has been pulled out of the salt, it's common to inspect it with a quick crack test, breaking it into a small bowl to verify smell and consistency before adding it to the main dish. This extra caution helps prevent a single bad egg from spoiling an entire meal. Despite these limitations, salt embedding remains a convenient strategy for Amish families who experience a temporary egg glut and don't wish to commit the time or resources to more intensive preservation techniques. It's not intended for the multi-month storage that some other methods provide, but the simplicity is undeniable. All that's needed is a sturdy container, a good supply of coarse salt, and a cool pantry or cellar with stable conditions. Households find it particularly useful during transitional seasons, when the hens start laying more than can be consumed immediately. In many Amish kitchens, you'll see a sack of salt stored near crocks of eggs, ready to be turned into fresh omelets or baked goods within a few weeks. Number 2, the oil or lard coating technique. This approach emerged in Amish communities that value minimal waste and readily available homestead resources. If they butcher hogs, the leftover lard can be refined to create a coating for eggs. Alternatively, some families use common vegetable oil purchased in bulk at discount groceries or farm supply stores. The principle is that by spreading a thin layer of fat on the shell, the eggshell pores are sealed, keeping out oxygen and bacteria. Generally, the Amish favor using only eggs that have not been rinsed or scrubbed, thus preserving the bloom. They'll take each egg, wipe off any dirt with a dry cloth, and then dip their fingers into warmed but not hot lard or room temperature oil to apply a uniform coating. It's crucial to avoid excessive greasiness that can turn rancid if exposed to heat. Typically, families label each coated egg with a date or keep them in a carton indicating the month. The success of this method varies, but many families claim that coated eggs can last from 4 to 8 months when stored in a consistently cool space, like a basement shelf or even a back pantry. Some mention a lower success rate if temperatures fluctuate too much during the hottest weeks of summer. The practicality of oil coating lies in how easily it can be integrated into daily chores. After the morning egg gathering, 1 or 2 family members might sit at the kitchen table, methodically oiling each egg. Children are sometimes allowed to help under supervision, making it an intergenerational activity. While this method preserves the egg in its raw state, each egg is still tested before use, commonly through the float test, where it's submerged in water to see if it stands upright, floats, or remains horizontal. If an egg floats, it's considered suspect. In a culture where resourcefulness is paramount, Amish cooks appreciate that oil coating doesn't alter the taste of the egg. When frying, scrambling, or baking, it's difficult to detect any difference between a fresh egg and one that's been oiled for months, assuming the egg was originally laid under clean, healthy conditions. People also note that the yolk stays golden, and the egg white whips up nicely for recipes requiring frothiness. The main downside is the occasional messiness in the storage area. Dust can stick to oily shells if the container isn't sealed or covered. Some Amish families solve this by keeping the eggs in repurposed metal tins lined with straw, which helps prevent direct contact with dust. In any case, oil coating remains a popular choice due to its relative simplicity, cost-effectiveness, and minimal reliance on specialized ingredients. Number 3. Pickling in vinegar-based brine. This method merges the practical need for long-term egg preservation with a flavor-enhancing process that many Amish families adore. Instead of trying to keep raw eggs intact, families first hard-boil a significant batch. After cooling them, the shells are removed, and the eggs are placed in large canning jars or ceramic crocks. A carefully prepared mixture of vinegar, water, pickling salt, and sometimes sugar is then heated to near boiling, while aromatic spices like mustard seeds, peppercorns, cloves, or chili flakes are added according to each family's preference. Once the mixture is slightly cooled but still warm, it's poured over the eggs, ensuring complete submersion. This spicy sour bath creates an environment inhospitable to bacterial growth, making it possible to store the eggs in a cellar or pantry for many months. After 2 or 3 weeks in the brine, the eggs develop a distinct tangy flavor. Some even take on a bright pink hue if beets are included, and as time passes, the acidity permeates deeper, resulting in a more pronounced pickled taste. Unlike raw storage techniques, pickling renders the egg immediately edible. No further cooking or preparation is required. Amish community members love to serve pickled eggs at potlucks, holidays, and larger gatherings because they stand out as a protein-rich snack that can be easily carried in jars without refrigeration. If someone visits, it's common to open a crock of these eggs alongside homemade bread, cheese, or preserved meats. The method's success rate is high. The main threat is if the brine's acid level drops due to incorrect vinegar dilution, or if any contaminants enter the jar. Most families keep the jar sealed and only remove eggs with a clean utensil, never fingers, to prevent introducing bacteria. Once in a while, partial jars might be transferred to a cooler spot if the weather becomes unusually warm. Beyond their direct consumption, pickled eggs can also be sliced and used to top salads, or even minced and combined with mayonnaise or mustard for a variation on egg salad sandwiches. In the Amish approach to self-sufficiency, efficiency matters a great deal. Families can preserve multiple batches from 1 day's worth of hard boiling, and since eggs are peeled beforehand, the final product is extremely convenient. This style of preservation differs from raw egg methods in that it's fully reliant on the interplay of heat, acidity, and sealing jars. Skills most Amish cooks already possess from canning vegetables and fruits. This overlap of knowledge makes pickling a smooth transition for anyone who's used to preparing pickled cucumbers, beets, or peppers. Pickled eggs may not taste like fresh eggs in an omelet, but they provide variety during the leanest seasons, appealing to both practical and gastronomic sensibilities. Number 4. Using wood ash for protective encasing. In the Amish tradition of waste not, want not, wood ash emerges as another innovative way to keep eggs edible for months without electricity. Throughout the winter, many Amish families burn hardwood logs to heat their homes and fuel their cooking stoves. The resulting ash, if properly cooled and sifted, becomes a fine powder that can be packed around fresh eggs. This powder restricts oxygen flow, slows moisture loss, and maintains a fairly stable temperature around each shell. The process starts by collecting ashes from the stove or fireplace and allowing them to sit until all embers are fully extinguished. Any larger charcoal pieces or foreign materials are removed, often by passing the ash through a mesh sieve. Then, in a clay crock, wooden box, or sometimes even a metal can, a layer of ash is poured in. Eggs are laid in single layers, each separated by more ash. The container must be kept in a place with minimal temperature swings. In some Amish homesteads, that could be the corner of a root cellar, while others with fewer storage options might keep the ash-filled container under a bed in the coolest room. The main caution is ensuring the ash is from untreated wood, free of chemicals or contaminants that could seep into the eggs. Proper dryness of the ash is also essential. Any residual moisture can accelerate spoilage instead of preventing it. Many Amish individuals who use this approach note that wood ash eggs often develop a slightly different taste, sometimes described as faintly smoky. Some find the flavor appealing in scrambled dishes, while others prefer these eggs strictly for baking or boiled recipes, where that subtle smokiness isn't as noticeable. Interestingly, the success rate can be quite respectable, with eggs remaining good up to several months if they started out fresh and uncracked. Families typically do a float test or crack test at the time of use. One advantage is that no specialized chemical ingredients like sodium silicate or slaked lime need to be purchased. The process is highly sustainable. The family gets heat from the fire, and the byproduct of that fire helps preserve food. Moreover, if done correctly, there's minimal ongoing maintenance aside from checking for any cracked eggs that might need to be removed. This synergy between heating the home and preserving food exemplifies how Amish communities have managed to thrive without electricity. Each step in daily life ties into another, making the household more self-reliant and efficient overall. Although it requires more meticulous handling, especially regarding dust and the need to brush off ash residue before using the eggs, it stands out as an economical, eco-friendly practice in line with Amish principles of simplicity. Number 5. The water glassing practice with sodium silicate. In some Amish districts, water glassing is hailed as a near-miraculous solution for storing large volumes of raw eggs over a prolonged period. The cornerstone ingredient is sodium silicate, often referred to colloquially as liquid glass, which, when diluted properly with water, forms a gel-like bath that seals the eggs. Families with robust egg production turn to this method when they need a high-volume approach that won't alter the taste or texture of the eggs. The procedure typically begins by preparing a clean ceramic crock or sturdy bucket. The sodium silicate solution is mixed according to recommended ratios, often a couple of ounces of sodium silicate per quart of boiled and cooled water. Fresh, unwashed eggs are then placed carefully inside, ensuring the eggs are fully submerged and that no single egg is poking through the liquid. If the solution is too shallow, the top eggs might spoil, tainting those below. Throughout storage, the container is kept in an area with a mild, steady climate, perhaps the floor of a root cellar, away from direct sunlight or wood stove heat. The alkaline nature of the sodium silicate forms a tight seal over each shell's pores, essentially halting bacterial intrusion. It also prevents moisture from escaping, so the internal quality remains close to that of a freshly laid egg for months. Some Amish families recount tales of retrieving water-glassed eggs after 8 to 9 months and discovering that they remain excellent for cooking or baking. The egg whites may sometimes appear slightly thinner, but that seldom compromises flavor or overall usability. A few families caution that if the water-glass solution gets disturbed repeatedly or becomes cloudy, it may need refreshing or partial draining to remove sediments. Small cracks, if unnoticed at the start, can cause localized spoilage that might spread if not addressed. Therefore, thorough inspection of each egg at the outset is key. The practical advantage is that the eggs remain raw, making them versatile for virtually any recipe: muffins, pies, custards, or just a simple fried egg in the morning. For Amish communities that heavily rely on baking breads, cookies, and cakes for church gatherings and daily sustenance, having a reliable stock of raw eggs throughout winter is invaluable. The method involves an initial cost to procure sodium silicate, which might not be as readily available in local stores as salt or vinegar, but many say that expense is justified by the high success rate and minimal flavor alteration. As with all egg storage approaches, families do quick checks, usually the float test, prior to using the egg. Water glassing also pairs well with the organized nature of Amish life. Once the container is set up, it usually demands little attention, allowing people to move on to other chores like canning produce or attending to livestock. Number 6. The slaked lime, calcium hydroxide method. Slaked lime, sometimes sold as pickling lime or labeled as calcium hydroxide, holds a revered status among certain Amish households. They praise it for preserving eggs in a raw, usable form for as long as a full year. By mixing lime powder with water, a slightly cloudy alkaline solution is created. Fresh eggs, carefully selected for unblemished shells, are lowered into this solution and kept fully submerged. Over the following weeks and months, the lime forms a protective barrier on the shell, much like sodium silicate, but rooted in a more traditionally accessible compound. In older Amish communities, slaked lime might have been easier to source historically than modern commercial sodium silicate. It's often used in canning processes or in preparing certain corn-based dishes, so having a supply on hand isn't unusual. The key to success lies in scrupulous cleanliness. The crock or bucket used must be scalded or scrubbed beforehand to ensure no bacterial residue clings to the sides. Some families measure the lime-to-water ratio meticulously, while others rely on visual cues, a particular hue and thickness of the solution that has been passed down in family notebooks. Once sealed and stored away from extremes of heat or cold, the container seldom requires tinkering. In the eyes of many Amish practitioners, lime solutions deliver the highest reliability. Eggs can remain almost indistinguishable from fresh ones when cracked, so long as they pass the smell or float test. The shell might acquire a slight chalky coating, but inside, the yolk is firm and the white remains clear enough for uses like meringues or custards. That's a game changer if you're planning to make foods that demand stable egg whites. Furthermore, the stable environment means that even in the heart of winter, a cook can retrieve an egg that was laid the previous spring and whip up a fluffy pancake batter or hearty omelet. Community members who have used lime for years recount a near-perfect preservation rate, provided no accidental cracks were overlooked at the start. The biggest caveat is the solution's potential to irritate skin if it's handled carelessly. Calcium hydroxide can be slightly caustic, so families teach young helpers how to handle the mixture properly, often with protective gloves or ladles. They also ensure the solution doesn't get too thick, which might lead to partial exposure of some eggs. Another subtlety is that some Amish families prefer the flavor of water-glassed eggs, claiming lime-preserved eggs sometimes have a more mineral undertone, whereas others report noticing no difference at all. Ultimately, personal preference and availability of lime often dictate whether a homestead goes this route or sticks with sodium silicate. Still, because it offers such an extended shelf life, slaked lime emerges as a prized approach, especially for those who may experience significant gaps in egg production during winter. By bridging those gaps with near-fresh quality, it contributes to the overall resilience and independence that define Amish off-grid living. And with that, many families rest assured that even in the deepest cold, they have a store of eggs to fall back on for nourishing their households in the most traditional and time-honored way possible.